Hi, this is Roger, thanks for dropping by. It's early in the day today, and this bit of today's video is the plan. Let's see how much of the plan we actually get done. I desperately want to repot 2 orchids. Those are the 2 that I wanted the sphagnum moss for. It was 1 originally, and then I thought no, it needs to be 2. They're both odonts, and they're both precious to me, so hopefully we will get that done. In addition to that, I need to get that done early in the day because I want to get the hot box on and give a good session today. I want a good 2 or 3 hours worth today because it hasn't been done for quite a few days. I want to keep at this because it seems to be working well. So that's that, and I've got a bitty day. I've got some stuff in here that I want to do in the house. And I've got some stuff that I need to go out for, and I've got deliveries, so I've got to plan all those bits all those bits together. Come on then, nuisance, you coming out? You coming out? No, you just stood there because I'm out here, aren't you, nuisance? Yes, so that's that, and the other plan for today is I'm going to get up and get that lot off. Basically, we're halfway through February now, and at the end of February, beginning of March, I've got my inspection, you know, to do with the agency. And when they come round, that is an eyesore. And it's not a big job to clean it off. And we are expecting rain. So at the moment, it's dry. So if I get up there with the brush, hopefully I can just brush it all off into the gutter and then hook it out of the gutter into a bucket or something or other. And then the rain might give it a bit of a wash off. That's my theory anyway. Where the shade netting is, there's not much to do. Over this side, that's an accumulation of leaves. So that's not muck, that's just leaves, they'll just sweep off. This is moss, a lot of that comes down off the roof. It's in the gutter up there, and the birds peck around in there looking for stuff to eat and drop the moss onto the thing. So I'm hopefully going to get up there. It could be deemed a risking life and limb, but it isn't really. I've got a pretty flat surface out there, and the steps will come up to about here, and I don't need to stand on the top of the steps to be able to see up there, and with my long handled brush I reckon I can sweep that lot down. So that's a job I want to do today, because if it starts to rain and it gets all wet and mucky, it won't come down as easy and it will be difficult to clean off. So that's the theory, so that's a today job as well. So as you can see, lots of bits and pieces to do today, keep me busy, and we'll get going with the rest of the video, which will start with once I've got the media together and everything, I'll get that repotting part of the video done. Yeah, we haven't done a repot video for a bit, and I certainly haven't used this media for quite a while, so we'll get that done. Right, let's get going then. Okay, 2 plants to repot. Both need surgery because their back bulbs have started to rot. So I've got my scissors in some rubbing alcohol, 70%, because I'm working on 2 separate plants, both of which have got a bacterial infection at the back end that we're hoping we're going to stop. I will need... Forgot that. I thought I had everything. I had a bit of a panic because my medium bark is in a bag that couldn't go with the rest of the media, so I put it under the dining room table at the end where nobody's feet go. And of course I was getting my media out and I thought, well, I've got small bark. Oh, well, I've run out of medium bark and I've got a lot of repotting, and I had sudden panic. That's what comes of doing things too early in the day. Right, first thing I'm going to do is, this moss that I've got is obviously dry, bone dry, and mixing it in that state is not the best of ideas, because what I want to do is, when I've potted these plants up, I don't actually want to water them. I want them to be damp enough that they'll be okay for a while. So what I plan on doing is, excuse the noise, is spraying the moss so that it's damp. And then that will soak in, and then in a minute I'll do it again, and in a minute I'll do it again. Because obviously it holds an awful lot of water. But what I don't want is this to be absolutely wringing wet, as it would be if I soaked it first. So the idea is to just get it damp. And that can sit in the corner getting damp while we do the rest of it. Right, let's get that out of the way. Right, coffee out of the way. Plant number 1 originally came from McBean's and is one of the Odontoglossum crosses that they produced, and I've had it quite a long time and I've nearly lost it so many times. It's a miracle it's still with us, but it is and only just. The latest growth on it did actually produce some roots. This is just going to lift out, it's not going to have much of a root system. I need to keep this away from the new media. But it has got enough roots that it should be okay. Now unfortunately this bulb here is starting to go soft here. Yeah, once that happens you know you've got liquid inside. This one is also soft. This one is probably okay. Now I want to get these sheaths off because this has had bad scale, which has been part of its problem, and hopefully that has now, any that are on here should in theory be dead. That's the theory. So I just want to get these sheaths out of the way. Now the new growth I'm going to leave alone. Oh no. This is what I was afraid of. The sheaths were holding the new growth. The new growth rotted at the base. I'm getting so much of this now. So this may now well be lost. So all I can do now is trim up this one remaining bulb that's lost its new growth and hope that it will push out another one. And it is a hope because it's unlikely to do so, it's so weak. But the first thing we need to do is get these 2 rotting bulbs off. See, the trouble is I won't be able to get that again. If I lose it, it's gone. Because McBean's, this came from McBean's when they were a proper nursery, you know, where they had plants for sale. And although they seemed expensive at the time compared with nowadays, they weren't. So all I can do is put that in a pot and hope that it will grow a new growth. It may or may not. Putting it in some more suitable media may help. So, right, where's my cinnamon? I'll put a pop-up of the blooms now so that you can see why I really do want to keep this going. We'll put some cinnamon on the parts that I've just taken off, and then we'll just put that to one side for now. So that's one. Not happy with that at all. Nonetheless, we may have something that we can recover, and we may not. Right, now why I left this one till second is this is the one that's in the rock wall, which in theory, last time I played with this stuff, I got a rash. Now I'm hoping not to be touching it for long enough for it to be a pain in the whatnot, but that's Brian's label. It's basically an Odontoglossum Anna Claire. Again, I'll put a pop-up of the blooms. But the ability to get hold of, so I'm just these Odontoglossums, so I'm just putting my hands in the alcohol now because I've touched that plant, and I'm now going to touch another one. So we'll do our hands, and we've done our scissors. So let's see what we've got here then. what we've got here is a very, very soggy bulb on the back end, and another one over here that's going. And the reason I had to leave this one, see, this is shriveled and is hard, but this one isn't, it's soft. So let's see if we can get that off first and get it out the way so that we don't have to worry about it anymore. It won't cut at the moment. Gotcha. Right, so now this old bulb here is okay to take off, whereas earlier I couldn't take it off because the new growth was right next to it and I'd have probably damaged the new growth, whereas now I should be okay to take that one off. And the oldest back bulb back here I'm going to leave on. Sheaths, again we'll get those out of the way, and we'll get the old flower spike out of the way too. Just tidying up a bit here. Right, now we've got to try and get this stuff off. Let's see how many good roots we've got. See, a lot of these roots are not very good, but we shall see whether they will replenish. I've got new roots coming from this new growth, and they're relatively plentiful and they've got growing tips. So providing that gets into some suitable media, it should get going. Just trying to get as much of this rock wool out as I can, especially around the base of the plant. It does actually hold quite a lot of moisture. It's another one of those things that it can be quite difficult to get wet, and once it gets wet it's soggy, but you know, it doesn't rot, so it doesn't go off, so you know, you don't have to repot very often, and that's why a lot of people use it. Is disturbing the roots is taken down to an absolute minimum. It's a theory anyway. Right, well, now the problem I've got, you see, is that to accommodate all of these roots, I'm going to need quite a big pot. Whereas this isn't a dynamic plant with quite a lot of new growths and loads of new roots, the pot will end up being too big to accommodate those old roots. So I'm going to trim them. I'm going to take them back a bit. So we'll just trim them basically. It's a branching root system. Not even sure these are alive. They're very old and tired looking, that's for sure. But as I said, it's in the process of generating a new root system now. Yeah, a lot of these are quite soggy. I'll try and remove the soggy ones that are obviously dead, and we'll see what's left. No, most of these are soggy. Certainly these round here are. Again, it's probably the ones that were on the oldest part of the plant. Most of what's left doesn't seem too bad. As I said, I don't want to take all the roots off. I think we'll leave it at that. So there we go. I'm putting those back in there so that when I use them next time, they start off clean. Right. So now I didn't get any pots out because I didn't know what I'd be left with. So those are our two plants. I've got another thing that I've just discovered that I didn't realise is when I moved house, the sponge rock, not the sponge rock, yeah, the sponge rock, the large giant perlite has gone missing. So it didn't come round, it didn't move house with me, and I haven't got it and I can't get it anymore. You can still get it in the States, I believe, but you can't get giant perlite anywhere in Europe, and that includes the British Isles, the UK. For some reason or other, the big stuff is banned, and what they call large perlite in this country is not large at all. It's quite small. So that really large perlite I can't get. And I did have plenty of it, but it seems to have not moved house successfully. Well, it was a bit of a panic doing all that, wasn't it? So I'm going to get rid of this now, and I will wipe off this with rubbing alcohol, because this is infected, and it's now been on here where I put my media. So before I get the media out, I've managed to keep this separate, so that that stayed okay. But we'll get rid of this, and then I can mix up my media. So instead of the perlite, I'm hoping to use these successfully. These are the grove stones, and they are porous. They do hold water. Probably not as much as the perlite, the giant perlite. I've got some charcoal which I will throw a bit in, and I've got medium bark and small bark, and we've got our moss. And I'm going to mix up a concoction that I think will be suitable for these plants. And this plant's going to have to be planted relatively deep, otherwise those roots aren't going to get straight into the media. Now at the moment they're growing. They're not growing very well, but they are growing. So I'll be back when I've had a tidy up. Okay, giving this a good wipe over with the rubbing alcohol, because obviously the media is going to go on it. Now this moss is nicely damp now, and that's one thing that Jim at Mathers, who does all the repotting, and the odonts go in this mix virtually across the board unless they're taking part in an experiment. As I said, I've lost my sponge rock, so I can't use the giant perlite, but I will have a substitute that's along the same lines, so it should be okay. Also, using these growth stones adds a bit of weight to the pot, which stops the plants falling over, which is also good. It's a sort of pumice, I think. Anyway, what we have is now the beauty of the sphagnum moss, which has a sort of sterilising effect in the mix, so that should help. As I said, that new growth, I didn't realise that had got like that. And I'm having that trouble with new growths. It's X trouble. That new growth's actually been sat like that for some considerable time. So that rot got in the base of that new growth a while ago, not in my latest environment where I've upped the temperatures and reduced the level of the humidity. So that happened before those changes. So let's see what we can do. Right, so my mix starts with this initially. Then we add some bark, and I'm putting a mix of large and small bark in. And I've got a picture in my mind of what the potting table looked like at McBean's, the proportions. And I'm doing it by eye. I think Jim does it by eye as well, come to think of it. But the proportions, are not absolutely critical. Somewhere near it will be good enough, if you know what I mean. It's, you don't have to measure it to the milligram or volume or however you would do it. It just has to be somewhere near it. I will put some charcoal in, not much, just put some in. Not sure it does any good really, but some say it does, some say it makes no difference. The one thing I do know is I don't think it can do any harm. Right, so there we go. And a lot of the bark and the stones are falling through the moss. So they're like underneath, so like there you can see, yeah? So I'll have to make sure I pick that up and mix it in as it goes into the pot. Right, now this one is going into that pot. You'd have a job to get more airflow than that. The idea being that the pot's bigger than I would like, so by having the airflow it will allow the media to dry a bit quicker. Now Jim's attitude to media for the odonts is it should always be just damp, never wet, damp. And watering is done accordingly because obviously the moss holds a lot of moisture. So if you only give it a bit at a time, it just stays damp and doesn't get all soggy. I'm going to put a bit of the larger bark in the bottom so that the air can get up through that air cone and not get blocked off by the moss. And then we'll put some in the bottom. I've watched Jim's repotting videos and seen him do it, and this is a strange process. You get the plant in, settle it down in the rough position you want it in, and then the expression he uses is I'm just going to fold that in, and that's what he does. He just folds it in from the side and any that's hanging over comes off. So it just gets folded in. It's not packed in any shape or form. It's just gently folded into the gaps, and then the roots get into it quickly. They've got plenty of space and they've got air around them. So lift the pot up and check that it's got down the sides, which it has. So that's it, that's what it's getting. And then I'm just going to take it off the sides, the bits that are hanging over. Now in the commercial world, that would be done, he'd have probably done 4 or 5 plants the time it's taken me to do that one. The speed is incredible, but it's a commercial enterprise and time is money. You can't spend loads of time faffing around. You've got to get on with it. So there we go, that's that one done. And I'm going to do a new label for that one because I haven't used the label maker to do a label. And that is damp. So until I see that moss starting to dry, it's not getting any water. So that's it, that's what it's getting. Right, so that's one. And we've only just about got enough for the other one, but the other one's going in a very, very small pot because it's highly unlikely to grow. Quite honestly, it's probably lost and that's the wrong pot. That's the pot it's going in. But we have got some active roots. They're not dead, they're firm. So there are some roots. We have a single leaf. It's not much, is it? At least it's a leaf. And 2 shriveled bulbs. So for this to recover will be a miracle, especially as it's lost its latest growth. It's now got to try and find a place to produce another one, which it may not be able to do. So it may be gone. Bit in the bottom, roots in. The oldest bulb is back against. Do you know that oldest bulb feels soft? I'm going to take it off, I'm not going to risk it. It's soft. Should have noticed that. I'll cut it so that it's got a clean cut. That'll be half the roots gone, no doubt. And my scissors need sharpening. They are really not doing the job at the moment. So we'll get that out of the way. We'll get the cinnamon out again on that wound. And I've got a cloth. I say that, but it just wasn't there. Right. So we're now down to a single bulb, shriveled, with a single leaf. Cross everything, as they say, because the chances of this making it are pretty slim. But I've seen stuff, you know, worse than that recover. And again, you just get some of this and fold it down the sides, just gently, very loose. As I say, it's when I took the amount of moss from Lynn I had in my mind that I was only going to do one plant. If I'd known I was going to do this one as well, I might have taken a little bit more, but there is enough here. There is enough here to do this, what is effectively a back bulb, isn't it? That's what we've got now. Just going to take that bit of bark out because it's right next to the bulb and the moss would do a better job. Right, chances of that growing are very, very slim, but that's all I can do. And that's the last of that moss. At our show, which is coming up in a couple of weeks, well, there's two shows. There's the Bournemouth Orchid Society show. My scissors have gone the wrong way round. These are my bonsai scissors because they don't meet, the points don't meet, they got bent. So these are my old ones. My new ones are in there. They should be out here. Right. That explains why they weren't as sharp as I expected them to be. Right, so I will make two labels. I will make a label for that in anticipation, even though it's probably a total waste of time. So there we go, that's my today's repotting done. And I'll get cleared up now. And the next job I want to do is have a go at this roof outside and see how I get on with that. It's one of those jobs that I'll make a start and I'll know within a couple of minutes whether I'm carrying on and doing the rest or giving up and getting somebody else to do it. Or waiting till Hannah's down to stand on the steps because I don't feel safe. I know where the tipping point is on my steps, and if I have to go above that, then I have to go very careful. And if I have to go even higher than that, then I don't do it. It's as simple as that. What I do instead is lean the steps up against something. Now, even though that means the treads aren't quite upright, at least it's safe to go right up because the bottom digs in okay. So we will have a go at that in a minute when I've had another coffee and I sit down for a bit. And done my two labels. Right, so there we go. This should hopefully make it. It's got some new roots coming. This probably won't. We shall see. Right, there will be a continuation of this video with me playing on the roof, or near the roof, and then that'll do for today. And if I don't add that bit on the end because I don't film it, then see you next time.